All right, guys, there we go. All right. The Apothecarium was founded in San Francisco by Ryan Hudson in 2011 with the aim to help patients find the right medication for their needs and to help them understand how to use medical marijuana safely and effectively. The Apothecarium is a full-service, award-winning medical marijuana dispensary with a commitment to providing patients with quality medication and a warm and friendly environment. Currently, we have 3 locations in PA, Plymouth, Lancaster, and Thorndale, but we have recently acquired some more, and there'll be more information on that. What sets us apart from other dispensaries is our focus on medical, patient, and education. We pride ourselves in offering education and training to not only patients, the community, but also to our physician partners. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Angelo. And at the end, please utilize the Q&A functions or the chat function to ask Amanda or Angelo questions. Thank you.
Okay. So I am going to share my screen here. Okay, great. So first of all, thank you so much to the Apothecarium folks for having me here tonight to talk to you about Cresco Labs and the PA program in general. Again, my name is Angelo Gabrielli. I've been with Cresco Labs essentially since the PA program started in March of 2018, so a little bit over 3 years. So we've been through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the program, and we've seen it make many great strides throughout those 3 years. So without further ado, I will go through my training slides here, and then we will open it up for questions at the end. Okay, so Cresco Labs, first of all, what is Cresco Labs? Cresco Labs originated in the state of Illinois. That was our first state prior to all these other ones, and Pennsylvania, of course. Ever since then, we entered in states, Arizona, Massachusetts, Michigan, Maryland, New York, Ohio, and California, and more to follow. And as you can see, we are one of those multi-state operators, and each state is different, obviously, but we try to keep the culture and the values the same. Our mission is just to get as much medical marijuana to as many patients in this state and throughout all the other states that we operate in. Our cultivation and processing center is in Brookville, Pennsylvania. It's about 90 miles north of Pittsburgh. And as well as cultivation, we also have retail dispensaries. They go by the name Sunnyside. Right now, they are only open in the Pittsburgh area, downtown Pittsburgh, a town called New Kensington, and a town called Butler. And Philadelphia area coming very soon. Look for those stores to open up in downtown Philadelphia starting, and then some of these suburbs around Philadelphia. Okay, so the products that are available, Cresco Labs offers every product that the state allows, and that includes dry leaf flower, the extracted oil that I will go into different processes that we use to extract that oil, and that's used to make our liquid live resin cartridges and concentrates. We also have a product called Caviar, Rick Simpson oil, capsules, spray tinctures, and lotion. Like I said, I will address those different products as we go along here. And as I mentioned, Cresco, as a multi-state operator, is dedicated to providing reliable relief with a focus on compliance. Different states have different regulations, and we follow them to a T, so we can provide that safe patient safety and satisfaction. Okay, so the plant types. And this is a little bit rudimentary, but depending on your knowledge of cannabis, when you look at indica strains, those are the strains that are used to reduce stress, relieve pain, limit anxiety. These are the types of strains that are perfect for, say, nighttime use when you're ready to sit down and relax. Sativa strains, in contrast, are those that provide an uplifting effect and ones that are used during the day. And it helps with patients' thinking, helps them become a little bit more creative in their work or their activities. And then thirdly is the hybrid strains, and that sort of falls somewhere in the middle. It doesn't offer too much of a relaxing effect or too much of an energizing effect. And just a little disclaimer here, these are, when I say that, an indica may relax you or a sativa may energize you, it is definitely individualized. So you take it with, the majority of these strains will provide those effects. But depending on your own body, it may have a different effect. So we try to explain that to patients as much as we can. And as you can see, our packaging is color coded. Our sativas are red, indicas are blue, and hybrids are green. So these are the most common strains that you'll see in the stores. Now Cresco Labs is one of the growers that is available in every store across the state, every dispensary. So you'll see these common name strains on their menus. I'm going to skip through the reserve line because that is going through sort of a rebranding right now. But that's our our top of the line brand, where you'll see flower, concentrates, liquid live resin cartridges. But like I said, I'm going to skip through that, the majority of that, because we're rebranding it. Okay, so the cultivation product life cycle, what does that look like? And these are snapshots directly from our facility in Brookville. First, you have the vegetative stage, which is the beginning stage of growth for the plant. And then after that is complete, these plants are transported to another room, one of 9 rooms I think we have now that are flower room, and that's where they spend the majority of their time. They get special lighting, special care, water, nutrients, and that's where you'll see the majority of growth for the flower. And then once it reaches its peak performance, and that's by strain, depending on height or depth or width of the plant, that's when it gets switched to the harvest stage. And as you can see here, this gentleman has it hung upside down, and that's where the trimming begins, where they manicure the plant and prepare it for its next stage. So after the plant is harvested, it can go in one of 2 directions. It can go in the dry curing room, or it can go in the fresh frozen room, which I'll get to. And then packaging. These slides were made by someone in Chicago, obviously, because we don't have pre-rolls in this market in Pennsylvania, but that's just a little depiction of the next stage, which is packaging. And then retail is obviously the last stage before it gets to the consumer. Okay, so these are our cultivation products. Right now, we offer premium flower that comes in 3.5 grams or 8s, 1 gram units, and then also popcorn, which in Pennsylvania is referred to as small flower, and then shake, which in Pennsylvania is referred to as ground flower. The DOH is very specific on the terms that we could use to describe our flower. They don't want those, run-of-the-mill marijuana terms used because obviously it's a medical market. So we just switch it up and we call it really what it is: small flower and ground flower. Okay, so as I mentioned before, after the harvest stage, the plant can go to a dry and curing room, or it could go into the fresh frozen room, and then it goes into manufacturing and then packaging. And the next slide, I think we'll get into the extraction. So the extraction types to produce our oil, we use two types. One is a butane, and that produces all of our liquid live resin cartridges, pens, disposable pens, concentrates, and then the ethanol machine produces everything else, all the remedy products, which I'll get into shortly. Those are the capsules, the tinctures, and the lotion, and the RSO. Okay, so getting back to those two areas that the harvested flower can go to. First, I want to talk about fresh frozen flower. So anything that you see here that has the word live in it, liquid live resin, live sauce, live sugar, live butter, live sap, which we don't produce too much of, that is indicative of an extract produced product from fresh frozen flower. And then anything that you see else on the screen, shatter and wax, that's produced from dry cured flower. So what's the difference? The main difference between that flour that goes in the dry curing room versus fresh frozen is sort of depicted here. So what we do is we take that untrimmed harvested flour and we place them in these vacuum packed sort of turkey bags, for the sake of a better word. And then those bags are placed in cold storage, minus 20 degrees Celsius. And then throughout that process, you see our butane machine there on the right. That process is also very cold, minus 80 degrees Celsius in those canisters that you see that are labeled ETS. So throughout this extraction process, we're keeping that plant frozen. And the reason why we're doing that is because years ago, somewhere in Colorado, I'm sure, or California, someone came up with freezing the plant, or found that when they froze the plant, it retained a lot of the flavor and the aroma and the terpenes, essentially, of the product. And it produced such a more robust flavor and aroma in the end product. So we obviously consider that a very important part of our cultivation cycle and extraction cycle, and that will never change here at Cresco. That's something that we will always produce liquid live resin. Okay, that's just a depiction of the machine. So these are really the benefits of the features that I just alluded to: heightened experience, pure aroma, robust terpene profile. If you have any experience with a high terpene product versus a low terpene product, you could really taste the difference and experience the difference. And not to mention, it's 100% plant derived. So another reason why we use the fresh frozen process and that extraction process is not only during a routine extraction process, a lot of those terpenes are lost. So a lot of cultivators or manufacturers have to introduce botanical proteins or botanical terpenes or other sort of terpenes that are not from that plant itself. As a result of this fresh frozen process, we don't have to do that. The terpenes are pulled out, but they're reintroduced back in, and they act as a thinning agent for our product. And so not only are you getting that superior aroma, that elevated flavor that we talked about, but you're also getting 100% marijuana, no cutting agents, no fillers, no nothing. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the remedy line. So we talked about our cartridges, our concentrates, our flour. The remedy line is, you can look at this brand as the more medicinally focused products, your RSO, Rick Simpson oil, which is an ethanol extraction, as I mentioned before. This is a great alternative to vaping or swallowing a capsule. You simply place a little bit under your tongue for sublingual administration, and it enters the bloodstream. The administration is pretty quick, or the onset of action is pretty quick. But that's not to say that patients do not use RSO on an edible, say put it on a cracker or a cookie and ingest it themselves, or that way. And it just take a little bit longer because obviously it has to travel through the GI tract before getting into the bloodstream. So these come in 1,000 milligram syringes, applicators, and they come in different, I'd say 4 different qualities right now. I'll put it that way because this is changing a little bit. So we have a 4-to-1, and the number before, or in the ratio, the first number is always CBD. So it's 4-to-1 CBD to THC, or 15-to-1 CBD to THC. Those brands are Harlequin and Harlesue, and they'll come in this white and black wrapper, as you see on the screen here. So in addition to that, we also have a blended sativa, which is called Awake Rise. And we have a blended indica, which is called Relax. And we have a blended hybrid, which is called Renew. And those are just common hybrid indica and sativa strains, respectively, that are combined. The only strain specific we have right now for our indica, besides the high CBD options, is a GG number 4, and that's an indica. And we decided to keep that strain specific for RSO because it was very popular. It's a great product for nighttime use, mellow, relaxing strain. Okay, so this is our extra strength lotion, sometimes called extra strength pain cream. It goes interchangeably. And this is great for patients that want to avoid every other application of medical marijuana that you can think of. You take a little bit of this lotion and rub it on the site of pain, and you get relief. It's localized, so you'll get pain relief right at that site of pain. And it does not, or very trace amounts, permeate the dermis and get into the bloodstream. So you don't get that euphoric feeling that you would sometimes get with a transdermal cream. Okay, so our capsules, another medicinally focused product that, a lot of early users of medical marijuana don't know exist out there. So we have a sativa, a hybrid, and an indica capsule. Comes in 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams, 10 capsules per box and 20 capsules per box. And then we also have a 1-to-1 option, CBD to THC option. That's great for patients that need something during the day and do not, want to be sidelined with any, that euphoric feeling that you may get from a 100% THC capsule. It's extracted cannabis concentrate, activated, and infused with cocoa butter. So I apologize, my dog in the background. This, in contrast to taking a product that's sublingual, has a slower onset because obviously you're ingesting it and it has to travel through the GI tract, but it does offer long-lasting effects. Okay, so that is the gist of my presentation here, and I guess we will open it up for any questions.
All right, well, thank you so much, Angela. That was very interesting. I do have a question already. From Dr. Cindy Finkelman. She says, I'm so thankful for Cresco Balanced Spray Tincture. It has changed my life. I'm wondering why it is only available sporadically. I also have that same question, Dr. Cindy. When I can find it, I stock up because I have learned it will disappear from the dispensaries. So if you'll just speak to that, Angela.
Yeah, and that's, that was a common thing that we experienced early on in the program. And I would say for the first 2 years, all the grower processors were finding which products stuck and which ones were, popular that they had to produce more of. You should start seeing that readily available. A lot of our remedy products are available to every dispensary to order from on a weekly basis. What changes are the strains for the cartridges, the concentrates, the flour. That changes, but we're getting a little bit better with honing in on the strains that are very popular for Cresco and sticking to those. As I mentioned, that one slide which showed the sativas, the indicas, and the hybrids, you'll see those strains on a regular basis, and then you'll see new ones introduced. But getting back to the 1-to-1 spray tincture, you'll see that in more plentiful amounts.
All right, thank you for that answer. I do have another one from Dr. Jen. Thank you so much for taking us through the details of your products and your product lines. I'm a big fan. I am as well. Just a comment, I think we really need to move away from using the misleading terminology of indica versus sativa. This terminology only describes the morphology of the plant and doesn't predict the medical effect of that particular plant. Those terms are really misleading to patients and providers. We really need to talk about evaluating a cannabis product in terms of cannabinoid and terpene profiles, since those are the factors that determine a product's effects and medicinal use. Please let's use specific terminology, especially in the provider space. Thank you for kindly taking my comment. I love your products and I appreciate what you do. Angelo and Amanda, I'd like to get both of your thoughts and reactions to Dr. Jen.
Yeah, Dr. Jen, great comment, and I would totally agree with that. And it's one thing that I've learned in the past 3 years being in this business. You know, my background is in pharmaceuticals. I was in pharmaceutical sales for years, so I'm so used to, you know, looking at a product PI and selling off the PI and studies and having just that playbook. Unfortunately, with cannabis, there's no playbook. And as I mentioned before, you know, we're very careful when we're talking to patients about effects that they can expect with an indica versus a sativa or a hybrid. You know, you have those staples, those strains that, you know, you can confidently say that, you know, majority of patients will get mellow effects from. But since everyone is different, it's hard to come out there with that kind of statement. I agree that it's better to hone in on the terpenes that, you know, have shown to be effective in certain disease states. And because those never change. Like, those are numbers that you can look at from COAs, certificates of analysis, and, you know, they may go up and down parts per million, but, you know, if you see a product that's high in myrcene, then it's generally going to stay high in myrcene, you know, give or take those parts per millions, like I said. So if you can educate the patients and the physicians and everyone on the terpenes, the benefits of looking at the terpenes for relief in your symptoms, then I think you have more the same. So I totally agree.
Amanda, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely agree with that. Just in case not everyone knows what I do initial consultations with new patients. So I'm seeing the brand new patients, some of which have never even tried cannabis in the past. So during my consultations, I typically, I go over sativa indica hybrid, and then I go into the terpenes, and I, you know, explain how they can change the effects. And I definitely think a lot of the patients will pick up on that. On the flip side of that, sometimes when I get to the terpene part of my spiel, some of the patients, it's just too much for them to take all that information in, especially the older patients, and their eyes just kind of glaze over. So I think for those patients, like having just at least something to go off of, like sativa indica hybrid, it makes sense for them. However, you know, I do try to educate the patients on the terpenes because they definitely can swing the effects one way or the other.
Great. Very interesting. I do have more questions. Dr. Cindy says, are the CBD capsules the same as a Bounds tincture?
Yeah, great question, Dr. Cindy. Yes, it is the same source oil that's used to make both products.
All right, thank you. And from Charles Harris, I have another question. Is your Harlequin 4-to-1 RSO completely strain specific? I ask because there seems to be a bit of a variability in Harlequin running anywhere from 4-to-1 to 1-5-1.
Yeah, another great question. So that, yeah, our CBD, high CBD RSOs can be a little confusing. So the Harlequin, or the 1-to-1 is Harlequin, and the 4-to-1 and the 15-to-1 RSO is Harlesue. It's just a derivative of Harlequin, but yeah, they are strain specific.
Perfect. And then Charles Harris with another question. I've had a couple of patients use topical THC for podiatrist plaques with excellent results. Have you been hearing anything about this from the patients or dispensaries? And Amanda, we can pull you in on this one too.
What was the, what were they using it?
I'm sorry, I'm experiencing a little bit of feedback. I'm going to read it again. I have a couple of patients using topical THC for bear with me.
Psoriasis.
Yeah, plaques with excellent results. Have you been hearing anything about this from the patients or dispensaries?
Amanda question. I'll let her know that.
Yeah, so a lot of times with like superficial skin conditions, psoriasis, rosacea, eczema, things like that, I feel like a lot of patients respond really well to a one-to-one product because you're getting some of that CBD in there that really does help with the surface inflammation. However, with that said, the THC lotion is definitely my go-to for everything. You know, if there's not a one-to-one available, if there's, you know, that THC definitely will help with the skin condition. In my experience, I think it helps a little bit when you add some CBD in there to the regimen, but the THC definitely helps with that skin inflammation as well.
Great answer. Looks like we have another question from Dr. Cindy. This is for Amanda. I have an old terpene brochure that was produced by Alira that I give to my patients, and it seems to help them absorb and understand the information at a later time, as opposed to when they are already overloaded with basic marijuana info. I encourage them to use this brochure to guide them when asking questions of their pharmacists. I think that's a great tool.
Yeah, I definitely give out those pamphlets. I also have a chart that's just like a black and white chart that has the same kind of information, just in a different way. And also, every time I walk my patients back at the end of the consultation, I help them order their products, and I always show them the label, and I show them how to read the minor cannabinoids as well as the terpenes, so that they're aware that they can play a role in picking out their own medications based on the information we provide to them.
And I think what's really cool about the Alira website, if you go to the formulation section, it gives a specific breakdown of terpenes, all the ingredients, uses, etc. And that's another excellent tool to use. All right, that looks like the end of our questions. I'm going to ask for final thoughts or final questions from Angelo or Amanda or any of our doctors on. All right, there are no more questions. So I'm going to get the closing thought from Amanda and from Angelo.
Oh, okay, so closing thoughts for me. I really love your products. Cresco products are definitely a go-to. We appreciate the certifying physicians when you're able to give a little bit of education to the patients before they walk into the dispensary. I find that that's very, very helpful, that at least they've heard some of the terminology, and they also have a little bit of a basis of knowledge, because it can be overwhelming when they first visit. So we appreciate you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you, all the physicians. That concludes our week 8 of the week 9 physician grower processor training, and we'll see you next time.